Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to today's office hours. If you check the YouTube comment, you would see a link, so you can just join me directly in Zoom on Zoom. So I think we can do that. Um, all right, while we're waiting for people to join in, if for those of you watching right now, if you have any question, you can just drop it on the YouTube comments so we can get started. Hi, Francisca and Emmanuel. You guys are welcome. Right. So yeah, let me call you unmute yourself. So you can unmute yourself and like ask your questions. Maybe you have something you need more clarification on. I understand you're now on Django web framework. So let's talk about Django, or object-oriented programming or stuffs, right? So anyone has any question? Or even if anything you want, probably you want me to like talk about or just show you how to do, right? So just anything, you can unmute yourself and ask. Can anyone hear me? If you can hear me, just unmute and say I. So I'll know at least people are
Hi, I can hear you.
oh, wow. Okay. How you guys doing? How is the experience with Python and Django? You guys need to talk because that's why I wanted it to be more interactive. So that's why I decided we should make it like you should be able to join the call. I want it to be very interactive. Okay, you guys are refusing to talk. That's fine. All right, so I'm just going to what do I do? Okay, so I'm just going to talk briefly about Django and maybe just show a demo on how you can start start off with Django and probably talk about different package management or dependency management tools you can use with your Django project. So yep, okay. Right. So first of all, when we're starting off a Django project, right, we need to I'm on a Linux environment, by the way. So most of the commands I'll be writing might probably work only on Linux. So in case it's not working for you. Right. So before we kickstart any Django projects, right, it is advisable for you to create a virtual environment, right? A virtual environment where you can install your dependencies that are specific to that Django project you're building, right? So, and as I mentioned, there are like different ways you can actually do that. There is just create a file here. So we have virtual env, which I think you would have talked about now. There is pip env, right? Virtual env, there's pip env, there is poetry. There's a poetry packaging and dependency. You can use any of the three. There are more, but I think these are like the three popular ones. So for today, I'm going to be using virtual environments, right? So the first thing you want to do is install virtual environment if you don't have it installed. And how do you do that? You run pip install virtual env, right? Pip install virtual env. I already have it installed, so it says requirements already satisfied. Now, the first thing you want to do is create a virtual environment. Is that right? And we do that by running. If I'm too fast, just let me know so I can slow down. And let me also know if you can hear me. By running virtual env and the name we want to call our virtual environments. So we can call it anything, right? We can call it project underscore env, like project environment. So once we do that, we have created a virtual environment folder where we can where we can store all our dependencies and everything. So right. So now the next thing is when you install your virtual environment and you create the virtual environment, you would want to activate it, right? So to activate your virtual environment, you run this is a Linux command, virtual env. Then you go to the name of the virtual environment, env/bin/activate, right? So okay, I don't think we need to add virtual env. Yeah, no virtual. So this would be source projects env. So you see by the side we have the virtual environment activated, right? I think on Windows it would be something like something scripts/bin/activate, probably. Can just check that out, can just Google out. Right, so now we have our virtual environment activated, and the next thing we want to do is install Django, right? Because we are creating a Django application. So all right, so we are creating a Django application. By the way, if you have any question, just feel free to let me know immediately. And if you're also watching on YouTube, you can drop your questions on the chat, right? Okay, so the next thing is to install Django, right, in our virtual environment. So to install Django, we do pip install Django. And with that command, we are able to install Django. So Django is the web framework, and for us to create a web app with it, we have to install it, right? So which is what I'm doing right now. And right, so I've installed Django in my virtual environment, right? So the next thing now is to start a project. So we want to create a project with Django, and to do that, we are going to run Django admin start project, and the name of your project, which is Python officers. Right. So when you run that command, you see a couple of files were generated, a couple files and folder, right? So let's just quickly talk about what each of these file means. Okay, so there's a question on YouTube that says, must you have to install Django for any project you're creating, or you just need to install it once? So for each project you're creating, you have to use different virtual environments. So you have to create a virtual environment for each of those projects. So that would mean for each of those projects, since you are installing Django in that virtual environment, of course, you have to install Django for each project you are creating, right? So there's another question that says, please can you demonstrate how to make an app with Django? Right, we'll get there. Okay, let's continue. Is it okay? All right. Okay, so I guess some people just joined us here. Victor and Bola. How you guys doing? Um, is there any questions so far? Do you understand what I've done so far? Like, can I continue? All right. So let me just go ahead and.
Okay.
All right, Emmanuel, you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to ask, how can someone eventually incorporate the front end and the back end?
Front end in like front end HTML, CSS, JS
Yes.
to back end. Okay, so there are different ways you can actually do it, but like the standard way is via like making API requests, right? So in Django directly, you can have like what we call templating, like Django templating, where you create your HTML file directly and other stuff. Like I don't know if you've started that already, but when you'll be able to create your HTML files and CSS and everything in your Django application, right? And you would be able to like render your data with Django Ginger templating, right? You'll be able to do that with Ginger templating. So, but if your app, your front end app is like hosted on a different server or separately, then you have to communicate via APIs. So you have to develop an API with Django. So there's a framework for that, which is Django REST framework, right? Uh, yeah. So basically, but I don't think we are at that stage yet. So right. So
Okay,
as I was
thank you
saying,
very much.
So after I install Django, I ran a command, right, to create uh a to create my Django application called Python officers. So hence why the name of the folder is Python officers, right? So before going to the folder, a file was created, which is manage.py. This manage.py is the module that will be used to run our command, like for our app to start it, to make migrations, or any other command that we want to run on our app. We'll have to run it with this managers py module, right? So now if you go into the folder, we have underscore init.py, um which is telling us that this particular folder is a package, right? So, and it's a module, it's a Python module, and this is what it's used to recognize that. So, and we have some other files, ASGI, which is to run our application in synchronous mode, like a synchronous server gateway interface. That is what ASGI stands for. And of course, we have settings, which contains all the settings for our application. There are some default settings, like there are some default settings that when you start your Django app comes with it, right? And yeah, there's a urls.py, which we use to declare the path, or like the URL to the URL input on like the web browser. So we use this to do that. And WSGI is web server gateway interface, right? Which is also used to run our application synchronously. ASGI is asynchronous, while web WSGI is for synchronous, right? So basically that's how we start our app. Like with this now, we can kickstart like we can run our application, right? So to run our application, we do Python manage.py run server, Python manage.py run server, and when we click enter, a couple of things happens, right? So we see the application is running on this port, which is the default ports for Django apps, right? And you would see here it says using settings, Python officer hours settings, right? Python officer hours, of course, and it is making use of all the settings here, right? And also we have something that says you have 18 unapplied migrations. That is because Django comes with some some models that we can basically use out of the box. So Django comes with like an admin dashboard that we can use to manage our application like an administrator, and those models need to be migrated to the database, right? So which is why we have this here. So to make migration, we just run Python manage.py. As I said, manage.py is used to basically run our app, like whatever command. So we have to use manage.py, and we do migrates. Right? So manage.py migrates, and if we run server again, we don't get that error. So now let's open this up in our browser and see the results. So now, right, so this is what we have. We can now see our application is running successfully, right? So basically that's how to start a Django application. Very simple and straightforward. Yes. Right, so let me quickly answer this question on YouTube from Sam. Says when you install virtual environments with ppenv command, you see files like pip4 on piplog. I want to know, is this pip4 the same as the requirement that text file being asked for? Yeah, exactly. Because pip4 contains the dependencies that we will want to use with the application, same as requirements. So in our case, we have only installed Django, right? So to check, we need to create a requirement.txt file, but there's a way we can just apply all our dependencies automatically without having to add them like manually to the file. So we want to check like the packages that we have installed in these virtual environments. We can do that by running pip freeze, right? And then pip freeze will tell us, okay, in this virtual environment, you have ASGRF, like 3 other, yeah. So we see Django also installed, right? And we can just add all of this, and we can just add all of this to our requirement.txt file by doing pip freeze greater than sign requirements.txt and enter. And a requirement.txt file will be generated, right, with all of those requirements. So easy peasy, right? Straightforward. So that's basically how we use a virtual environment. So let me see. Yeah, so that is it. So Opera says ppenv and pip, which is better. Pip ppenv basically is used to install like in your virtual environment, right? Ppenv will install that package in your virtual environment. Pip On the other hand, if either you have a virtual environment activated or not, it installs to whatever environment it finds itself, right? So basically that's how PIP works. So which is better? I don't know. It depends on the environment you're working on. You're using virtual environments. You have to use pip, like pip install whatever you want to install. If you're using pipenv as your package manager, then you have to use pipenv. If you're using poetry on the other hand, you have to do poetry, poetry art, then Django. So in this case, like it's the same. This is equivalent of, let me just show you. Right. So for virtual env, when you're installing a new package, you do pip install Django. When you're using pipenv, the equivalence of this command when you're using pipenv, right, is pipenv install Django. And the equivalence of that when you're using poetry is what poetry add Django. So basically all these things are doing the same thing. They are installing Django in your virtual environment, but like you're using different package managers, right? So basically that's it. Yep. Right, the 30 minutes in. So as I was saying, when we run pip phrase requirement.txt, requirements file is generated, of course. And yeah, with all our dependencies that are needed. So we also notice there's a new file here that says db.sqli3, right? So this is the default database that comes with Django app, that comes with every Django application, right? And we can check that in our settings, right? So in our settings, we go to databases, right? Database objects, we'll see it's configured as SQLite3, which of course we can change. We can change it to MySQL. We can change it to Postgres, right? You can use whatever DB we want to use. Cool. So when we ran the migration the other time, the database was created, right? So that is why we have this. What else? Okay, so someone was asking how to create an application. Is poetry a must? No, it's not. It's not a must. It depends on your, I don't know, you have to consider some factors like how to, and like what you want your app to do, what's the app about. So is it like something that will require, are you working with a team? Like you have to consider a lot of factors too. But basically it's not a must. You can use anyone you would like. So personally, my preference has been I started with virtual environments, and then I started using PPM, and then I started using poetry. So I've always been using poetry for all of my projects now. Like not even only Django. I use poetry for packages, right? When I'm creating a Python package, I use poetry. Then I'm working with Flask or Fast API, I use poetry. So basically, yeah, just because it's very flexible. I can easily integrate a lot of things with it, like formatting check, like typing check, MyPy and some other stuff, right? A lot of things. I can easily, put in it to test like settings for maybe I'm writing a PyTest, yeah, a PyTest test. Yeah, so a lot of things. So that's why poetry, but it's kind of advanced, like, so you have to have, I think for beginners you should just stick with virtual environment and PPM. PPM is even a little bit advanced, so it's the ranking is virtual environment to PPM to poetry, right? So basically that's it. Right, so now we have our Django application running and we want to, so let me just demonstrate how you can create an application for your Django app. So basically, let's talk about applications, right? So first of all, what is an application basically? Like, why do you have to create a Django application, right? So a Django app is like a library. It's like a package, right? So it's to represent, we have a very large project. So it's like you have to create an app to represent some part of that project. So for example, we're building a blog application. All right, so you can create an app that handles maybe authentication. We can create an app that handles posts. We can create another app that handles comments. So just like to have your, not just like jam pack all your code and everything into um one large code base that is not very what's the word now, like not very diversified. Is it diversified? Yeah, it gets like you have all of this separated and you can easily, so well, you can easily use, they are reusable, right? You can easily use your app in another project and stuff like that. So yeah, so basically that's why we create apps. And yeah, so for you to create an application, so let's say Python office hours, what happens in Python office hours? You want to create an app that says, okay, attendees, right? Attendees, people that attended the Python office hours. So let's create an app for that. We'll do that by running Python manage.py and start up attendees, right? Attendees, I think, this or any. All right. So and we run that, and then we'll see a file, a folder was created. A folder was created, right, with the name attendees, and there are full file. There are some files inside admin.py, which is I talked about Django coming with a default Django administration, right? So whatever models you create for this application, you can register them here and then you'll be able to manage them from your admin, right? So, and these are for models. You can write your text in here and views, right? Your views are basically your views function is like the view function that serves your templates, or in a case whereby you are creating an API that returns your request or whatever. So yeah, basically, I don't know if I'm speaking to many gibberish. Do you have a question, Bola? I see you unmuted. She left. Okay. So right, I think I'm just going to stop there for today. So if you have any question, you can just ask on the Slack channel, and of course, always available to answer your question. Thank you for coming and thank you for your time. Yeah, so I'll see you next week. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.